So we've all heard about this thing called the Hour of Joy, right? It's always popping up in the story, especially when we talk monsters and theories. But what really went down? What did we see on that last tape of chapter 3? Right now we're gonna dive into this. Smash that like, hit subscribe on the channel, and let's get started. The so-called Hour of Joy is when the monsters in Poppy Playtime revolted against the regular folks, against the employees just following inhumane orders from the top brass. You could say they got what was coming to them. But there's some real tragedy in this tale too. Not for the monsters, but for the folks who were turned into monsters. The kids who died in the shelter and the regular workers who had no clue what was happening behind the company doors. I mean, it's sad all around, but practically everyone bit the dust and then the monsters started offing each other too. It's a twisted story even though we saw firsthand what went down at Playtime. It's the classic monster uprising against humans, fueled by the messed up experiments, terrible conditions, and overall mistreatment. Of course they were gonna rebel. Leading the charge was Prototype, Experiment 1006. Same kind of monster, probably got the worst treatment too. That's what we hear on the tape. Some scientist dude named Dr. Harley Sower was trying to squeeze info out of him. By the way, he's the one who pitched the idea of making bigger monsters for the company. I remember hearing every moment of it. It lasted so long, so agonizingly. They tried to hide, to run, anything to stay alive. I remember their cries, "What's happening? Why is this happening? What are those things?" It was a senseless slaughter, that's all it really was. They killed everyone, guilty or innocent, it didn't matter. So in the end, the puppy doll describes to us the Hour of Joy. She witnessed those horrifying events firsthand, so she gave us a bit of insight into what went down. So where did it all start? Strangely enough, the beginning of this event was on the Mob Entertainment channel where the developers uploaded a VHS cassette. Kissy Missy on August 8, 1995 at 10:45 was being transported by train along the OKR. Exactly at 11 o'clock, just 15 minutes later, the mass slaughter began. That's when the Hour of Joy kicked off. We saw the scene with Kissy Missy on the tape right in that spot, and it didn't all happen out of the blue. As far as we remember, there were already cases of uprisings, just not on such a massive scale. One of the monsters could rebel and escape. For example, on the same Mob Entertainment channel, there's a tape with Huggy Wuggy. And no, it didn't escape during the Hour of Joy, otherwise they wouldn't have shown us the document at the end where practically all the employees involved in capturing Huggy died. But they're kind of considered missing, and the document is signed by Leet Pierre, the head of the innovations department. So it seems that they turned a blind eye to such problems and just issued some document as an excuse. People disappeared, people died, but they weren't going to shut down a major project that they'd invested all their efforts into. The experiments continued, and there's another tape with Braun, but just a small one. Presumably this event happened 4 years before the Hour of Joy, so in 91. There's this Playtime CO employee named Thomas Clark. He's a 59-year-old man diagnosed with lung cancer. He voluntarily agreed to an experiment to transfer his organs into a dinosaur toy. He became known as Experiment 1199, and when they decided to introduce him to similar experiments, he was attacked. The attack was carried out by a monster against another monster. Aggressive behavior was already evident back then, not to mention the story with Catnap, who was openly bullied. They just plucked an ordinary boy, Theodore, out of the shelter and turned him into a monster. And none of these scientists realized their mistake. On the tape with the conversation with Catnap, they gleefully taunted him, saying, "No one's gonna save you, ba ba ba." Damn, I'm such a jerk, such a villain. And judging by past incidents and the scientists' behavior and attitude towards experiments, the Hour of Joy uprising is a logical outcome. We don't know what exactly triggered everyone to suddenly rebel, but the groundwork for it was definitely laid by the Playtime management themselves. Maybe Prototype somehow influenced the monsters, but all he needed was a lit match and some spilled gasoline. For the longest time, many like me couldn't figure out who participated in this Hour of Joy. Were all the monsters involved? They didn't show us everyone, but something tells me that almost everyone took part. On the tape, they only showed Huggy Wuggy, Mommy Longlegs, Smiling Critters, and the Delight Sisters. Turns out there were many more, and something tells me one of the sisters wiped out the others, crafting herself a neat little mace from rulers and pencils. Later on, her weapon saved them from catnap. But catnap's presence on that tape is beside the point. There was also Boxy Boo and surprisingly Kissy Missy. Based on the previous recording, she seemed pretty calm. They only strapped her with belts and loaded her onto the train, but somehow that didn't stop her from breaking free during the hour of joy and scattering the employees. This could be an indication of Prototype's influence on the other monsters. At the end of chapter 3, some even thought Kissy Missy was turning evil. I reckon Prototype had a hand in all of this, whatever he did with her. Attacked her, tried to dominate her. And the second option seems more plausible. Alright, what about the Poppy doll? Why doesn't Prototype have any influence over her? Remember, in the first chapter, it's like we freed her. She mentions it at the end, by the way. Maybe Prototype had to get rid of the Poppy doll through imprisonment. In the second chapter, Mommy Longlegs kidnaps Poppy but doesn't kill her, even though she could have. Could the Poppy doll carry the same valuable information as Prototype within herself, and maybe Prototype needs this valuable information? Because, as I'll remind you again, there doesn't seem to be any Poppy dolls among the uprising, but she remembers what happened perfectly well. Let's keep that thought in mind for now. As far as I understand, there are no survivors among the humans. They showed us the bodies of people scattered all over the Playtime company. What happened to them is also mentioned. They were eaten, just eaten, and maybe those monsters who indulged in that got a taste for blood and remained in an aggressive state. By the way, Kissy Missy didn't eat anyone on the recording, which could explain her sudden calmness. So what do we have here? Company employees, kids from the shelter, all dead. But what about the company's leadership? Where did they go? Did they face the same fate? Interestingly, nothing is said about that. I think the developers didn't leave us with food for thought for nothing. So what happened to the company's management during the hour of joy? Well, maybe some of them are no longer alive. Elliot Ludwig died even before all these events. Stella Graber, the head of player care, could have been killed. We can't even be sure if she knew about these experiments because on the tape in chapter 3 she's clearly surprised by the disappearance of one of the kids. But the main jerks in this whole story are considered Leith Pierre and Dr. Harley Sawyer. Let's go back to the end of the first chapter and listen to the last cassette because it was recorded during the hour of joy. Whose voice could we hear there? Let's compare notes, shall we? Could it be Leith Pierre?
Final log. In relation. Experiment 1006. The prototype.
Hi, my name is Leith Pierre, and I'm the head of innovation here at the Playtime Co. Toy Factory.
Nah, probably not. He's got this smug way of talking, but ain't no room for smugness when there's mass murder going down, and maybe, just maybe, that whisper could pass for Leith Pierre. But who's got the lowdown on Prototype like no other? Dr. Harley Sawyer, of course. Now, let's compare it to his well-known voice.
I'm not worried about myself. One breakthrough and I'll be back.
My name is Harley Sawyer. I'm called the Doctor.
Okay, this is catnap.
It's getting closer, but why did I zero in on that last cassette in the first chapter? Cause the doc there says he ain't sweating himself. One breakthrough and I'll be back. We gotta keep pushing forward for science's sake. Do those below us get it or not? The end. Those below us probably means the monsters or the poor schmucks from the company who ain't breathing anymore. And who could have made this recording? Harley Sawyer fits the bill, considering his manic devotion to science and experiments. This recording just underscores that. But who's he talking about in it? Prototype. And who knows Prototype inside out? Dr. Harley Sawyer. Could this mean he's still kicking? Absolutely. Why ain't he sweating himself? Where's he planning on going back to? That last recording, it's quiet and scared, yet oddly confident. Sounds weird, but it's like he knew this was coming and had a plan. But as of now, no doc's been spotted roaming the halls of Playtime. Maybe we'll get the scoop on Playtime's leadership fate in the next chapter. What do you reckon? Drop your theories and suggestions in the comments.